So my name is Wanda Wolosky, and I was born in Warsaw, Poland. My mother was a manicurist in Warsaw, very known. She has very big clientele, and most of them was just Poles, not Jews. My father was a butcher, and just before the war started, he, with a partner, opened a slaughterhouse or what else, which was in Praga. That's across the river Wisła. So, and mine, I used to across the street was living my grandmother, one of my grandmothers, my grandfather, and two young uncles. I think it was in 1937 or 38 that my grandfather passed away. And I mean, he was the love of my life. He used to sing to me Jewish songs. He used to take care of me. He used to also, if I did something wrong and I was getting a beating, he would stay, and make sure that I wouldn't get really punished. And we used to live in a place that was called Wolska, which was strictly Polish neighborhood. We was the only family that was living on that street. At the beginning, which I don't really remember because I was smaller, we was living with my grandfather. He used to be a tailor, and he used to have a store, which that was also the business. That was where everybody was sleeping. In the back room, there was another room which a woman that was making Brazil was living. Eventually, across the street, it came an empty apartment, and we moved into that. It was a ground floor apartment. And I mean, life was going on. The kids over there used to tease me. I used to sing at that time, it was still about the French officer that was accused of smuggling.
Dreyfus?
Yes, and there was some kind of song about him, and that's what they was singing all the time. And if also there was a song that around the roses, but the thing is there was different kind of words to it. And so, I mean, I wasn't too happy over there. But the thing is that I never, let them, if somebody did something to me, I just give it back. Eventually, I was sent to a preschool, which I hated the place. And every time when my mother took me over there, it was a gate that you shouldn't be allowed to go out. I found always a way to get out. And after she left, I would run back home. And there, in that house, we have a person that was taking care of the building. So I was running over there always, and he was taking care of me. And in the preschool, there was one seesaw. And there was a lot of children, so you needed to wait your turn. And one time, there was only two Jewish. There was another girl and I, Jewish, over there. So that little Jewish girl, she was waiting patiently to go on that seesaw, and a bully, big kid, Polish, came and pushed her away and said, I am going now on the seesaw. And she fell down, she started to cry, and I just couldn't see that thing. So I went to him and I punched him in the nose. He started to bleed. And from that day on, nobody called me any names, because it was a regular thing to call dirty Jew. That, oh yes, that was all the time. That, I grew up on that. So that was the beginning. And then it came 1939. Of course, the grown-ups knew about it, what was going on. I did not. And then my mother went to work, and I woke up one day and there is plane flying over the city, bombs falling down. You know, they used to have blankets from feathers, and one house got hit, and one blanket was flying, and the window was on the street from our apartment, so I could see it. So it was like snowflakes flying in the window, in the wind, you know, and people running crazy, yelling, screaming. Nobody knew what was going on. Of course, the grown-up knew. I didn't. And so that was going on day and night. My mother volunteered to be a, how to say it, you know, every house used to have 2 or 3 or 5 people that used to, Polish houses have big gates, you know, to close it, to make sure that the gate is closed, that nobody comes in, because everybody was afraid. So she volunteered to stay one of those people in. But the thing is, also starvation started right away. Because it's not like today that you have a fridge there, you can put stuff. You used to buy bread, butter, milk, whatever, every day, and there was not even an ice box. So the bakery ran out of flour. They couldn't bake anymore. So starvation started. Most of the time we were sitting in a basement. And every time the plane was coming down, the whole house would shake. The back of the house got hit. You know, this houses in Poland was like that, you know, built. So, and you know, that was going on for 2 whole weeks, because the Polish army figured maybe they can hold down and the German wouldn't come. But the thing is, not only they fly with the planes bombing, they also artillery would also come from all the direction of Warsaw. And if you go on a street, they would catch you to build bunkers, not bunkers, but, you know, for something, you know, put even the tram, they used to turn around so the tanks wouldn't come in. Good thinking, right? Nothing happened. So after 2 weeks, eventually they surrender, Warsaw surrender. And the army came marching in. I mean, there it is, you know, you see those faces not smiling, not nothing, just coming in. And the first order of the German was, to them everybody was dirty. So they needed to be the lice. So my mother and I, we got an order to go to a certain place in a basement. There was windows going on the street. And everybody all the women needed to get undressed completely. And we got sprayed with DDT, which doesn't exist anymore. Because there was window on the street and the German soldiers were standing over there, they was laughing at the naked woman. So that was my first experience with the German, really. And then they say, okay, we know that you hungry, we're going to start feeding. So they gave flour to the bakers and told them to bake bread. But right away they told them that there's no food for the Jews. And and Jewish people, they, especially religious Jews, they dress differently, they look different. If a person like that would stay in line, he would be beaten and pushed away. Well, my mother and I stayed in line. She was holding me in her arms. When our turn came, there was a German staying, watching that nobody sneaked in. The German gave me a loaf of bread and one loaf of bread to my mother, which was something unbelievable because nobody got 2 loaves of bread. Everybody just got 1 loaf of bread. As we were walking, at the end of the line was staying a woman that was living in our building. And for some reason, every time she saw my mother, she said, "Look at that Jew woman." So that was not an exception. She said, "Look at that Jew woman. She has 2 loaves of bread. By the time it's going to be my turn, there'll be no bread left over." So my mother took one of the loaf of bread and gave it to her. And she was staying with her mouth open. She didn't know what to say. Now, in the meantime, what happened is lots of men, especially, knew that the border to Russia is open, so they went to tried to go to Russia. One of them was my father and my uncle. I didn't know about it. And I only found out after the war what happened to my father. So my mother knew before that because some of the men came back and they told her, but she never told me. So after the war, I found out that he went with the other men. And what happened, like my uncle needed to get a Russian citizen so he could go stay in Russia. My father didn't want to become a Russian citizen, so he was coming back. He got caught in Minsk by the German and shot. So my uncle told me that story after he came back, after the war. So every day, every time there was other orders coming. And it went like that. If you have a business, you need to give the business away. If you have money in the bank, you only can have 2,000 zloty. And every week, just to feed your family, to take 200 zloty. Doctors, Jewish doctors couldn't practice anymore. Jewish teachers couldn't teach anymore. And of course, if you have gold or silver, you need to give it. Business was being taken away. So the thing is that eventually, because there was really no money, no nothing, starvation started. So even before the ghetto was set up, people were starving. And if a Jewish family would walk on a street, they would be stopped by the German. They would tell the woman to undress as they was examining her private body parts, because they figure maybe they hiding something. They would tell the men to run from one corner to the other as they would beating them. So you wasn't safe on the street. You couldn't go to park, you couldn't go to movies, you couldn't do nothing. And also you wasn't safe at the home, because any German, anytime could come, take whatever he wanted. And if you objected, they would beat old people, pregnant women, or children. And not enough that they would take this stuff, you would need to take it down and pay for the person that was taking to his place where he was living. So that was the life in Poland. And every day there was different kind of things happening to Jews. I mean, to shoot a Jew was nothing. It was very easy. And they decided that they want all the Jews in one section of Warsaw, close to the railroad station. So at the beginning, they gave 3 days for the people to move around. Eventually, because there was, a group that was in charge, they took some important people and they make a group of those people in charge, like a community. They make them in charge of everybody. So some of them went to Krakow, to another city, where they were sitting a big general, and he hated the SS. So he postponed and gave longer time for the people to be able to move. And they also started to build the wall. Now, to build the wall, you needed to take the big bricks from the bomb houses, clean them, and pay for them. And when they built the wall, you needed to pay also glass, bottle of glass, break them and put on top of the walls so nobody could jump. And the wall was like, 12 feet high or something like that. So now another thing what happened is that, let's say that today they're going to tell you this section, all that section, going to be the ghetto. So people started to move. Next day they say, oh no, this is not the section. This is going to be the section. So the people that already got that the apartment over here wind out on the streets. My mother didn't wait long, and she exchanged our luxury apartment. And when I say a luxury apartment, it's 1 room, kitchen in the back, and toilets in the back in the courtyard. She was able to exchange that apartment to one, and I don't remember the street, for a room, 1 room, that it was, when you put 3 single beds, that was the size of it, which was good. Now, I didn't tell you the story of my uncle. One uncle was 15-year-old, one was 18-year-old. 6 foot, good looking, good built, leader in Boy Scout. And there was an order that came in they was looking for workers in Germany, for volunteers. So he said, I'm strong, I will volunteer to work. So he volunteered. We got 1 letter from him saying, I'm okay, I'm working, everything is fine. 3 months later, we got another letter saying, we're very sorry, he got sick and he died. Of course, we didn't know what was going on, so we believe everything. So when we moved, at least in that same building, my grandmother and the younger uncle was living. There was some other uncle living some other place, cousin, all over, everybody was moving in different direction. Now, not only that the people from Warsaw was put in the ghetto, because they started to take the people that was living in different places outside the ghetto, everybody in. Why they wanted this? It was because they saying that the Jews are making stealing things and selling it on black market. So they want everybody, keep together. That was their excuse. So they built the wall. They put 13 gates. And at each gate there was a Polish policeman, Jewish policeman, and a German soldier. At the beginning, everybody was happy that there was Jewish policemen. Figure, they're going to be nice, at least something. Well, later on we find out it wasn't that. And at the beginning, you still was able to get out from the ghetto. And then one day it came, you cannot go out anymore. Some people decided that they aren't going to listen to it. They got out, they got caught and shot. I think it was 8-10 people like that. Now, an area that was designated maybe for 250,000 people, there was 500,000 people living. In each, not an apartment, in each room, there was 8, 10, 12 people living, one on top of the other. Lice started to be on everybody. Even if you have money, sometime on the money the lice would crawl. Because there was not enough water, too many people, one on top of the other, sickness started. And outside of the walls, they put sign that, the typhus and other things not to get in here. And starvation started. What happened is that there was a way that they decided who is going to get what kind of amount of calories. So first came the German. They got like over 2,000 calories per day. Then got the Poles. They got, I think, 700 or 800 calories. The Jews got 182 or 74 calories per day, which was one slice of bread, maybe. And this was if they have it, okay? One slice and a soup that a potato peel was floating in it. And that was because in almost, not every building, but quite a few buildings have decided to have kitchen. And they used to feed some people. And what used to happen, you used to need to stay in line. And by the time you get that slice of bread and the soup, if you didn't put that bread away right away, most of the time a child would come grab that slice of bread, stuff the whole thing in his mouth, you would go hungry. Or even if there was sewage water, they would throw that bread in the sewage, pick it up and eat. And when you walk the streets, there was dead body laying all over. And you got so used to it that you didn't care anymore. And if an SS came to the ghetto, you needed to give him a whole sidewalk. And one time, my mother and I, we was walking, and on the other side of the street was walking an SS. And a small child didn't have enough time to get out of his way. He picked the child by his feet, knocked his head on the wall, and dropped the dead body in a gutter. And I understand that that was not the first time, but this was what we saw it happen. And what was happening that it became necessary to smuggle food. And who was the ones that was smuggling food? Usually women and children. And how do you get out from the ghetto? Sometimes there is a rumor that there's a hole in the wall and everybody is running. Or through a sewage. Sometimes, because a building next to the wall on the Jewish side was close to the building on the Aryan side, and through the basement you could go. Now, with us, it was also many times we would stay by the gate and wait for a good German to let us pass. Sometimes you found some, sometimes you didn't. And when we got to the other side, my mother used to have friends. She used to do manicure for them. They used to pay her for it. We used to stay at the housekeeper person that was where we used to live. But one time when we came back, he said, you cannot stay here anymore because somebody saw us. And he said, somebody from the building who knew us saw us staying over there. So he went to him and said, if I ever see them again, I'm going to go to the police. And if you go to the police, you get shot. And he gets paid, of course. So we couldn't stay there anymore. Now, she used to also have a person that used to have a restaurant. And we used to work over there, get some stuff. Now, the thing is, you couldn't carry nothing in your hand. You have to have everything hide on your body. And especially in the winter time, Poland is unbelievable cold in the winter time. And many times that we were staying by the gate, waiting for a good German to let us pass. I was staying and I was crying and the tears would freeze on my cheeks. And so, that's how it was. And can you stop for a minute?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. How is it?
Delicious.
Really?
Cold. Very nice.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, continue.
Okay. So the thing is, it got harder and harder to get out. And it got to the point that we didn't have any food for some time. Now, in the ghetto, there was factories for the Germans. They used to do uniforms, they took helmets, other things. And the foremen used to be Polish. And one of them was a friend of my mother. So he came and he said that he will take me with him, bring me next day with food. Okay, so I went with him. They slaughtered a pig, and the fat that it's under the skin, which is really bacon, they put around my body, under my coat, so I wouldn't carry nothing. We went to the gate. The Germans say, bitte Papieren, looks the papers, alles in Ordnung, everything okay. And then he puts his hand on my shoulder and he say, are you called my child? And I was sweating with every pore in my body, because if that hand would go a little bit lower, he would feel what I'm carrying, and it wouldn't be a child. It would be bullet on the spot, because that's what it was. Whoever, any smuggler that got caught was especially the Jewish police. They used to have, I think they used to have to bring 5 a day to the German. That was the quota. So they can't shoot kids. And that's what the Jewish police used to do. Okay? So the thing is, I was so lucky. And yeah, we used to have a cousin over in the ghetto. One time we went to visit him. He was very rich. And he started to tell my mother, oh, you shouldn't be going out all the time. You're going to get killed, you know. And my mother said, I'd better get killed than live in a situation like that. And the only thing that he offered us was a glass of tea without even sugar. And I say, you know, and I was saying to myself, why don't you stop telling her what to do? Instead of that, why don't you give me a slice of bread? Now, also in the ghetto, there was regular smugglers. And they was making good money. Because there was a restaurant, there was nightclubs going on. But most of the people couldn't afford. The most of the population was poor. Those people that was the smugglers, they was making good money. Because some Jews, they not all of them gave money to the German, they was hiding money too. So they have enough money to pay for it. So then one day, and it was January, I think it was 1943, we left the ghetto. On our, just the clothes on our back, and my mother said, we're not going back anymore. Whatever is going to happen, it's going to happen. This is not a living. So we didn't have where to go. So we started walking the streets, sleeping in basements, sleeping under the steps in buildings. And one day as we walked, the woman that my mother gave the loaf of bread saw us walking. And she said, what do you do over here? And like I said before, you never knew who was your friend, who was your enemy. They would take you to the police station, you got shot, they got paid for it. So she said, what you doing here? And my mother said, we're looking for a place to stay. So she said, come with me. She used to have a small building in a cemetery. She used to take order for headstones. So she took us over there. It was bitter winter. Every day in the morning, she would come from her house with food, share the food with us, put the fire in a tiny little stove so we could get warm up. So you see how a person can be changed just by getting one loaf of bread. Of course, in the nighttime we was freezing because you couldn't have smoke coming from the chimney in a cemetery. I mean, it was not, and being a small kids, being in a cemetery, and you used to hear stories, that the dead's coming out and things like that, But anyway, now, after a while, my mother found a place. It was on a 6th or 7th floor with some people that she knew, very close to the ghetto walls. And the uprising started already in the ghetto. So We used to sleep in a kitchen, and a trunk that used to have a bump in the middle, like that. That's where we used to sleep. And at nighttime, I could see this sky all red because they was burning the ghetto. And because Polish houses have only the bathroom in a courtyard, so when we needed to go, we needed to wait till nighttime when everybody was asleep to go down. But one day I decided to sneak out, and I sneaked out and I went to the wall, and I could hear the shooting over there going. And I felt so proud. I was staying all that by the wall, and I was crying. And I wanted to be over there. I was a little kid. I wanted to be over there. I wanted to fight. And a bunch of Polish kids, boys, came, and they saw me crying over there. So they figured that I may be a Jew. So they say to me, "Oh, do you want to go over there?" And I say, "Yes." So they say, "Okay, we show you a way." So they took me to the basement, and they raped me. They was holding me, they raped me. Of course, I didn't know what exactly was, but I knew something. And the thing is that some kind of noise they heard, so they was afraid and they ran away. I just got up, cleaned myself, and I went to the place where we was living. I never told my mother nothing, because I was afraid that she's going to beat me for my stupidity. But I learned a lesson. I didn't trust anybody anymore. Now, when the ghetto was finished, it came another order. Any Jew found in any buildings, everybody would be shot. So the person over there told us we cannot stay anymore. And lucky for us that, we knew somebody else. I went to her place and I asked her if we could come and stay with her. And she said yes. So I went to my mother back and we moved to her. And it was a really nice place. It was 3 rooms. One room she was living, the woman. Another room we was living. And in the third room, that was an attic apartment. And in the third one, she was raising rabbits. The only thing what it was is that the floor underneath her was living the woman and the husband that used to have the restaurant. So every time that we needed to go to the bathroom, we needed to make sure again that everybody's sleeping. And not having toys, I wanted to play with the rabbits. So there was baby rabbits, and I wanted to catch, but there was always one daddy rabbit. He always went after me. He was biting my legs. He was horrible to me. And I was so afraid of him. So one day she decided to do rabbits too. Well, that was good, because there was no such a thing like having meat. Maybe once in a blue moon you could buy horse meat. Then on the bottom of the house there was a place that was closed, but I think it maybe have belonged to a Jew, woodworking place. And I used to go down over there and smell that wood, it was smelling so good. And another girl came. So at least I did have with somebody to play, and I think that the woman that we were staying found out about it. And I think that she was sure that we were Jews. And so she decided to send me to some cousin of hers to a town, little shtetl, little town. So I went over there, and the only thing that I remember is that they did have a big oven, and they was baking black bread. And that black bread with butter, it was the best thing I ever ate. I stayed over there for a short time. When I came back, I used to have long hair. When I came back, lice was crawling all over my head. My mother put a newspaper, put kerosene in my hair. It was coming, and the lice was falling down on the floor. And that way I got rid of the lice. And then one day, her brother did bring a person to stay over there. And I was one day staying next to him, and I heard him counting in Yiddish. So I went to my mother and I say, he is Jewish. And my mother said, oh no, he's not. And I say, yes, he is Jewish. So my mother went to him and she said, both of us cannot stay here. So he said, why? Because I'm the same thing like you. So her brother came and took him. And after the war in Israel, we met him. So anyway, and of course one day I sneaked out. And across the street, there was a movie house. And as I walked, somebody saw me on the street. And he said, are you Blima's daughter? And I said, no, I'm not. And I started to walk, and the person started to walk behind me. And I was afraid, So I went to the movie, and I still remember it was Titanic, the old version, playing. I was sitting over there, and I was, didn't know what to do. Eventually, I sneaked to the door in the back and started to walking around, finding down if somebody's following me. And I went to there was 2 crates, and then lots of people were standing over there. So I found out that there was a head of a woman that somebody killed her in one of those crates. And the police was trying to find out who killed her. And I was still not sure. So I took a tram to go to Praga she used to have friends over there. So I went over there and I stayed over there with them, and it got late and there is curfew. If you go after curfew, you get shot. So they say, oh, you cannot go, you have to sleep. So I slept, and I got so, I felt so miserable that I bled. My nose was bleeding over the pillow, and 5 o'clock I woke up and I say, pretty soon the trolley gonna start coming. I'm gonna take a walk, and the thing is, to walk I need to go through woods, through cemetery, through a German post to the trolley. But I took the trolley back. I came, the gate was already open, And my mother, she was so happy to see me that she didn't beat me up. So in the meantime, what happened, when I wasn't there, because there was an attic apartment and there was a window in the roof, somebody broke in and stole things in it from the house. Okay? So now I was locked in. I couldn't go out. I have to stay over there, not to go no place, not to do nothing. And I didn't know what to do with myself. So she did have a Bible, and she has also a book with Esperanto, the language. So, and when my mother came, she started to teach me how to read. And I started to compare pictures to the words. And I started to study Esperanto. And one day, as I am over there, I hear noises. The person wanted again to break in. And I went and I started to yell, Nobody could hear me, of course, because it was like 7th floor, but he ran away. So, okay, now, in 1939, the Polish government escaped to London, England. And the American, English, French already started coming in from one side, the Russian from the other side. Now, the thing is that the Polish government in exile didn't want the Russian to take Warsaw. So they told the Polish underground to uprise. So they did. And the thing is that the Russian was already across the river. So they uprise. We was sitting in a basement in a little cubicle, very close to the steps going down. And every time I would go out and listen to the people, what they were saying, and I heard a story. Oh, a Jew said that he is Jew and he wants to fight with the underground, and they shot him. All different kind of things like that. And I was coming back to my mother and telling her what happened. But eventually, the woman decided to close that in, so I couldn't go out, because you never know. So we was locked from outside. Now, when the German came back to Warsaw, for 2 weeks, they was just killing people. They killed like a 250,000 people. They just was pulling them from the houses, shoot them on the street. By the time they got to our building, they cooled off a little bit. So the first thing what they did, they throw a hand grenade down the steps and started to yell for everybody to get out. And my mother said, we cannot go out, we don't have papers. But like 10, 15 minutes, somebody else came and he said, they're going to put the house on fire. And I said to my mother, I'd rather get shot than to burn alive. So I start kicking the door till it opened. And as we walked, there was a little dog that got hit by the hand grenade, was laying still breathing. So we started to walk. And sure enough, in the middle of the street, there is a German patrol checking papers. And we don't have papers. And my mother said, do something. I mean, what can I do? So I figured, okay. So I started jumping up and down, yelling, I need to go to the bathroom. I need to go to the bathroom. And one of the German said, you see that building over there? Go over there. And when you finish, come back. Well, instead of coming back to him, we just went behind and we started to walk. You see bodies laying on the all over. They put out us outskirts of Warsaw in a big church. Everybody was over there. Later on, I found out from my mother that the woman that we were staying with was also over there and she was wounded. But she decided to stay. There was only one German that was looking over everybody, and he was mad. Whoever came close to him, he would beat him with the butt of his gun. Because he was supposed to be in Berlin to see his family. And he was stuck in Warsaw. Okay. And then he got an order. Whoever wants to march today can do it, and who doesn't can stay. So my mother said, go to him and ask him if we can go, if it's better to go today. I say, he's going to kill me. But I went, he pat me on my head and he said, go today, my child, because today it's going to be a slow march. So, and in the meantime, they closed the big gate. And I said to him, but the gate is closed. He opened the gate for us and let us out. And there is a column of people. Who is in the column? Women, children, old people. You didn't see men, you didn't see any teenagers. And we started to walk, and there's only one from Ukraine on a big horse running around the column, so nobody can escape. And we're marching 6, 7 miles or something. We come to a little town, and there's a factory, rubber factory. Half of it was factory, half was designated as a hospital. And all the workers, Polish workers, standing in a line and watching. And there are some German also standing. And one woman say, well, that little girl I would take. And my mother say, what, I am a dog? What about me? So she didn't know exactly what to say because all the German, she said, well, I would take you too. So we started to walk. They opened it for us. They took us right away to the office, gave us the call to ring because that was August hot. No food, no water, no nothing. And she disappeared. Comes a German officer and try to find out what's happening in Warsaw. And my mother didn't want to say too much because, and he says, so what happened? You have where to go? And my mother say, well, there was a woman, and as she's saying it, the woman comes in. And he didn't want us to go through the front. So he took us all the way to the back to let us out. We came, she was living in one of the rooms in a house. As we're staying, because she didn't have the key, her sister was living with her and the sister had the key. As we were staying, and it was a little garden, the Ukraine guy on a horse come around and yell, any bandits over here? And my mother was holding a little basket with our belongings. She threw it in the bushes. And she said, oh no, nobody like that over here. So he went away. Okay, so we slept on the floor. No pillows, no blankets, but at least we have a roof over our heads. And you need money to live. So we made a little box on a string. I bought cigarettes, and I was selling cigarettes in that factory hospital. And I was really making good business because I was selling, and the kids, other kids, they were so jealous. They, they, one time they want to say, she must be Jewish, she's so lucky. And I told this to my mother, and she said, well, you better be careful what is happening. And I said, you know what, I don't care. I really don't care. If somebody does something to me, I'm going to beat the shit out of him. And one day I came, and I came late for some reason. And they all were so happy, the kids, jumping, yelling, screaming. I said, what happened? Oh, they caught a Jewish engineer and they shot him. So he did have good papers, but they told him to lower his pants, and they shot him. I saw a handkerchief laying over there. I picked that handkerchief, and I went in a corner, and I started to cry. Because I promised myself that time that nobody ever going to see me crying, and that I'm going to be strong, and that I'm going to survive. That's the promise that I made to myself. So I went in the corner and I started to cry. I couldn't understand why kids, young kids, can be so happy to see somebody being killed. Okay, so the sister of the woman befriended a German soldier because he didn't have family in Germany and he couldn't go over there. So one time he came and he bring us a blanket. And then a tank division came to town and they asked for women to come and work in the kitchen. So my mother went to work in the kitchen. And then one day, one of the officers asked somebody to come to clean his room. So my mother went and she cleaned his room. So a high-ranking officer came and said, who clean that officer room? So everybody say, oh, Yadviga. So he said, I want you to clean my room. And he gave her a paper that it says on it that she is working for the German. Paper that we need a paper, she destroyed after the war. One time, a German came and he couldn't eat black bread because that's what we get, black bread. And my mother just went to a market and she bought white bread. So she gave it to him, the white bread. The German over there couldn't understand how a Polish woman would do something like that. Okay, of course they didn't know that she was Jewish. Okay, they left and it got quiet, like before a storm. You didn't see German, you didn't hear nothing. The only thing that you could buy is bread with kerosene for some reason. And then all of a sudden there's a rumor that in next town, Russian tanks. And I started to run like crazy over there. And sure enough, there is the Russian tanks over there with the red star on the tanks. And I jump on one of them as they start rolling to my town. And all the people in the town that I was already standing on the street, and my mother was thinking that I'm going to go with the tanks to Warsaw. But no such a thing. I stopped. So we was liberated. By the way, the next town, there was a camp over there. All the people that was walking from Warsaw, that's where they was walking, to that camp over there. And from that place, they were sending to Auschwitz, to all different camps. So, and again, our luck that we never got as far as that. So my mother took over my business. She was selling cigarettes and Russian newspapers to the Russian. And eventually, or at the beginning, some of the Russian soldiers start coming, walking through the town. And one that was coming, he used to have a long coat like that with a hat like that, you know. And my mother started to talk to him. And he said, well, I'm Jewish. And my mother said, I'm Jewish too. How do I know what to do? If the German going to come back or no? So he said, in the meantime, don't do nothing. In conversation, if you want to find out if the other person, if you think he is Jewish, say in the conversation, I'm who? I'm who? So you will know. So that's what my mother used to do. She used to say, and if somebody didn't, so what did you say? Oh, nothing, nothing. But Jew knew what it was. So she found out that was quite a few Russian officers that was Jewish. And there it is, a Jewish woman with a Jewish child, and they wanted to do anything for her. And we were still saying on the floor. So they say to her, find a place and we would make sure that you get it. So my mother found a room in a building. So they make sure that we got the place. They gave us a bed. They found anything for us. I got very sick. And before that, one day I walk on the street and I see a person walking. And he looks at me and I look at him and I say, your Uncle Henry. And that was my uncle. Because you see, after the war, everybody went to Warsaw after Warsaw was clear. And you different office places to sign your name. This and this person is alive, lives here and here. And he found where we was registered, so he came to look for us. And I remember him. So then he told me about my father. And I got very sick. I was sent to a sanatorium. And German mountains. Yeah, in Germany. And I stayed over there for a year. And then I came back and I went to an orphanage because my mother needed to work. She couldn't take care of me. So I went to an orphanage in Otwocsk. And there was a lot of kids in the same situation. And my mother used to give me money to buy fruit. Instead of buying fruit, I used to buy books. I used to belong to 3 libraries. And because you could only take 1 book from a library. And there was a German shepherd, and he used to have his own house. And I used to go over there inside. I used to sit and read books. And nobody could see me, and everybody was afraid of the German shepherd. So eventually, it came 1948. We found out that we have a Jewish state. We wanted to leave Poland. We didn't want to stay over there because I went to school after the war, and the teacher was such an anti-Semite. It was just unbelievable. And I didn't want to stay where I'm not being wanted, you know. So we put for papers to go to Israel. We needed to wait for 2 years before we got permission to leave. And so we left Poland, We traveled through Europe, and funny thing is that 2 other kids from the orphanage was coming. So we have a clique we made. And when we came to Italy, we boarded an Israeli ship with Israeli sailors. And the sabras, and you can see the difference in person that was not afraid, didn't give a damn you can say about anything, And I befriended one of them, and he started to teach me Hebrew a little bit. We came to Haifa, where it was near Haifa. There was a place that all the new people used to go. Do you still want farther, or do you want to miss to?
Keep going.
Okay. And it was a place that quarantine, okay, was barbed wire around. So we three started to talk, I say, no way in hell I'm going to stay all the time behind barbed wire. So the guy and I, we decided to sneak out. And we did sneak out, and we started to walk, and we wanted to go to Haifa. Because from the ship we could see the beautiful, Haifa. But we didn't go as far. We went to a Maqbara. Maqbara is a place where the people after the quarantine was sent already. And I started to talk to a little girl. And the mother came out because she couldn't understand. She didn't speak Polish. She didn't know Yiddish. And so she couldn't understand what we wanted to talk to her. So the mother came, and she knew Polish or Yiddish, and she said, that's too far to go to Haifa. So we decided, okay, so we go back. And, and I am never asking people for their name, which was my big mistake. So we went back. We stayed in that quarantine for some time, and then we were sent to a place in Pardes Hana, in a tent. May, in Israel, May, June, hot, in a tent, okay? And my mother remembered that she has family in Haifa, because my grandfather's sister left after World War I to go to Palestine. So we started to look, and we found family. And then one day we have everybody got together, and the woman from that I was speaking to her was over there too. And she was family. She was the wife of my grandfather's sister's son. And the son and the wife, they was in Russia. So they survived. Okay, I was for a while working in a teenagers camp with a doctor. And then came a group from Switzerland. One kid got sick, so he stayed behind. And I took him to a kibbutz after that. And I liked the kibbutz, so I said, that's where I want to go. And the person that was in charge of the Aliyat HaNoar, of the young people, say, I will put you in a best kibbutz. Don't go over there. Well, you hear something like that, I want to go over there. So I went over there. I was supposed to work half a day and learn half a day. I was working and working and working, okay? And I hated that place. I hated it. So every time that I got a day off, I used to go to a recruiting station, And I said, I want to join the army. Well, in Israel, you were supposed to be 18. I was 17. So they say, no, we cannot take you. But every time I was going and bugging them, and they got so sick of me that they say, if your mother signed papers, we're going to take you. So I went to my mother, and I say, sign the paper. No, I am not going to sign. I said, I'm going to sign it, and I'm going to say that that's your signature. So she did sign the paper. I was taken to the army. I was in military police, K9 unit. That's my picture here. I served my turn. I got discharged. I was working in a zoo because I like animals and I always wanted to be a veterinarian, which we couldn't afford. And then it came 1956, the Suez Canal War. I was in that war. And then my grandmother, my father's mother, came to the United States in the 30s, and I was the only grandchild left alive, so she wanted to see me. And every time, she used to have a cousin, very rich, and every year he used to come to Israel. Every year he told me, your grandmother is getting older, she wants to see you, blah, blah, blah. And every time I would say, no, no, no. And then eventually in 1957, I decided to come to the United States as a tourist with this that I'm going back. Well, I came to the United States. I stayed with my grandmother. You couldn't say a bad word about Roosevelt. Roosevelt got gas to her, okay? Eventually, I met my husband. He was from Brooklyn, born in Brooklyn. I got married. His cousin was working in immigration. So it was very easy. No, not easy, but it was easier to do papers. So we got married. I got 2 children, my daughter first, my son second. And in 1962, my mother and her second husband came to the United States. For a while, they stayed with me, then they moved to Philadelphia, and we decided to live in Israel. So we moved to Israel, and it was very hard because my husband was working in Pratt Whitney experimental machine. So he tried to get into work for the Israeli aviation, but they didn't give any salary. I mean, the pay was so low, it was just unbelievable. We got a beautiful apartment because a friend of ours was a member of the Knesset. And so we opened a pizzeria. And it was one of the best pizzeria. People used to come from all over buy our pizza. And then after years and years, my husband decided that he wants, especially that my daughter came to the United States to go to high school and to go to college. And we really didn't want to be away, so we decided to come back. And then we was living on Long Island for a while, and we bought a business in New Jersey, which was a crooked business. We lost all our money, and we was living in New Jersey. And then we used to come because my husband used to have cousins over here in Arizona. So we used to come to visit Arizona. And we decided to move over here. And we was moving after 9/11 exactly. Okay, I have only 2 cousins that was left alive after the war. One of them was in Warsaw Ghetto when the German came in. She was with other 3 or 4 women, and they took the women to the roof of the building, and they told them to jump. So the other women jumped, and they all got killed. She asked the German if she can jump from the other side. So the German told her, yes, you can. So she jumped, and she got caught on a pipe, and she slid down to the ground. She was sent to Auschwitz. She survived Auschwitz. And her husband was really a cousin of ours. And we met them in Israel. She never told this story to her daughters. She has 2 daughters. She never told that story to them. She told me that story. So, I mean, you hear things. I have a friend whose mother was fighting in Warsaw Ghetto. You heard about Mordechai Anelevich, right? Everybody heard. But nobody heard about Franklin. He was another one that was fighting, and I have that thing in my book. And his mother was fighting with them. The thing is, when she came also to Israel, nobody wanted to hear, especially Ben Gurion didn't want to hear nothing about it, because that was different. It was parties. Even in the ghetto, there was parties. If they would get all together, many people would survive. But each party was fighting almost against each other. And that's what happened over there. And when you came back, when you came to Israel, Ben Gurion didn't want to hear nothing because the other guy was from the other party. So nobody even heard. And she was going all the time and trying to tell them what happened exactly. Nobody wanted to listen. Eventually, I think 3 or 4, maybe when she passed away, I don't remember, maybe 5 years ago, something. Eventually, somebody started to listen to her and listen to this story. And I have his book, his name, and his thing, what he did. And I have also her name and her picture over here, because she was the mother of a friend of ours in Israel. And there's another thing. A few years back, I was invited to come to a lecture by I don't remember the name, a professor that was talking about the Onek Shabbat papers. And the funny thing is, he was saying about a person that after the war went to look for and they found 2 places where they was hiding the paper. And I know the person in Israel. I know him. My mother and I, we used to go to him. So this is not in my book, because that was after. But the thing is, I have still 10 pages empty to my book. I can add to that. So eventually, that's what I'm going to add, those things. Because this is, it's just unbelievable that you know people. Okay, so now what did you want to ask me?
Some questions.
Sure.
So when the Germans came in 1939 and things got really, really bad, and it was just you and your mother, where did you get the strength to go on inside? How did you wake up in the morning and just deal with this nightmare?
You know, which when I go to school and I talk to the kids and I explain to them things, I say, you maybe have a bad day and you figure your life is not worth it, nothing, and you want to kill yourself. I say to them, you know, that's today. Tomorrow it's going to be a different day. And you're going to see that everything is you're going to feel different. You're going to want to live because that was just temporary. And the same thing was, you know, you don't want to die. You want to live. No matter what, you want, you know, you want to be strong. You want to do dafka. So that's how it is. And with us, it was that I was speaking perfect Polish. My mother was speaking perfect Polish because in our house we only spoke Polish. My grandfather would speak Yiddish, but in our house, my father, my mother, only Polish. If they wanted to say something that I wouldn't know, they would say in Yiddish, and I understood, of course. You know, so that was the funny thing. I would go in the back and I was laughing, you know, to myself, they think that I don't know what they're talking about. So, but, you know, you try to fight everything and to try to survive. And another thing, we was lucky. Luck was staying with us. I mean, how many times, you know, I was thinking that that's it. I would be dead. And it didn't happen.
Now, you mentioned you didn't know who you could trust, so you trusted no one.
I didn't trust nobody.
How long did you feel that way about people? Do you still feel that way? Was there a point where you changed and said, maybe I can trust some people?
Yes, I mean, when I came to Israel and I saw how it is, you know, how the Sabra are living, you know, how they, you know, they was not afraid. They was, you know, hey, you know, we call it Schwitzer, show off, okay? And I figure, okay, so everything has to be okay this way. So, and slowly, I started to trust some people. Not everybody, but some, yes.
Sidney is also from Poland.
Right.
And when I spoke to him, he talked also about how there was a lot of anti-Semitism even before the Germans came in. What are your feelings about why people disliked you so much, even then?
Because, first of all, you know, there was many that was talking about the Olde of Zion, the book, that it came from Russia.
Protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. That every Jew is rich. Every Jew has money. Okay. And I think that it's not only that they envy, because most of us, maybe, I don't know if everybody, work hard to get to something. And if we have a little bit of money, it's because we worked hard for it. And we try to educate our children, which Most of them in Poland, especially before the war, they was ignorant. The priest was saying Jews are devil. That was it. Jews killed Jesus. That was it. Because the priest is the son, almost the son of God. He knows what he's saying. But they never went to see that Jewish engineer built universities, built different railroad, different kind of building, museum. That it doesn't count. And I tell you something, I'm so mad that they build the museum now in Poland with the glass thing in Warsaw. I am so mad about that. Why didn't they build it in Israel? With all the things that going over there. We have a teacher coming that was maybe 7, 8 years ago, maybe something like that, with a group of students from Lodz. And he said, oh no, everything is so nice now. Everything, there is no such thing, there's no more hatred, it's nothing. Okay. And then I go on the computer and launch the soccer team selling t-shirts with the anti-Semitic things. Okay? You telling me that you don't hate us? Why are you doing things like that? So that's why I never went to Poland. I don't want to go to Poland. Let them have their country and let them be happy over there. I'm happy here or in Israel.
You believe Poland is an anti-Semitic country still?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know what? I have German friends. In my book, you're going to see, and I give you extra papers too. I have German friends. There was stationed in Fort Huachuca because there was German liaison officers. I on a computer with them. I am on iPad with them all the time. And we're friends. Okay? Of course, I got a question. Do I hate German? And my answer is, this is new generation. Why would I hate somebody that didn't do nothing to me? You know? To me, it doesn't make sense to hate somebody that didn't do nothing to me. I mean, most of them, I don't know what their fathers or grandfather did, okay? But those are different people. And let me tell you something else. There was one liaison officer that I got rid of him. Because the master, he was an officer. There was an officer and a master sergeant. And I went to Fort Huachuca to speak. And the master sergeant wanted to come and say hello to me. And the German officer refused to tell him to go. Refused. Tell him, no, you cannot go. I wrote to the German consulate. I wrote to other things. I have a whole book in German that he went to court in Germany. I got rid of him over here. He was supposed to stay over here, what it was, 3 or something years. He disappeared after 2 years. Okay? And everybody knows about it.
The German people, when Hitler rose to power, they weren't all Nazis, not all of them, but they became part of the killing machine, ordinary people.
Yeah.
How is it that ordinary people can do something like that?
Propaganda. I mean, if you every day, every minute of every hour, you hear the same thing, this and this and this and this, some people don't believe. Some didn't believe. Some people hide the Jews. And the thing is, you see, another thing is, from Germany, some people was able to escape. Okay, Poland is in the middle. You couldn't escape. We were stuck. So the only place was to go to Russia, but not everybody could. And some went to Russia. They went to the places that it was still under Russian, and all of a sudden the Russian moved and German occupied Vilna and other places, and they got killed over there. And the thing is, like even Pavel, he went to Poland, right? He knocked on the door. He wanted to show his daughter, right? She even didn't want to open the door to let in. And you tell me that there is not anti-Semitic going over there? Come on, give me a break. He's not going to take it away from her. He just wants to show where he was born. Me, I didn't have any property. We didn't have any properties. The places that we was living in Warsaw got destroyed. And even if I did have property, I wouldn't want to go over there. I don't want. I am happy. They happy over there that they don't have the Jews. I am happy that I am a Jew some other place.
Let's talk a little bit about what it means to be a Jew and survive, because since goes all the way back to the time of Christ.
That's right.
Jews killed Christ, and then all the lies about the blood libel and Jewish Jews and money and all the hatred. Yet, and of course, Jews had to be on the run. They were in one country, they got thrown out, they go to another country, but somehow we survive. We keep going. They kill 6 million of us, we keep going. We have the state of Israel. What is it about being a Jew and survival that are so strong?
It's really hard question, it's hard to answer something like that. I think that we're stubborn people, and I think nothing can, we still, whatever happened to us, we're still going strong. That's the only thing that, I could figure, because, and the thing is, you see, I'm not a religious Jew, but I am a Jew, and I am not ashamed of that. So I don't know what it is. It's in our blood something, I think,
Do you know the Tikkun Alum?
Olam, Tikkun Olam.
This, I think, is very special because Jews, when I was growing up, I also, I'm a cultural Jew, a secular Jew. I was not religious at all. But I was taught to get an education, do something in this life, but at the same time, care about other people, help other people. So my question is, are we still that way? Do we still care?
I think so.
Even after everything that's happened to us?
Even that some people hate us, we still, I remember when I used to live in Hartford, and there was, I forgot the name of it. It was a store that used to sell milk and things like that. Behind it was that thing, the whole thing. But the store, you could buy milk, butter over there, just those kind of things. And I remember one time I went, and I usually like to, to talk, to ask the person that works over there a few things. And a woman came in, and I was talking to the guy, and she look at me and said, "Foreigner." And I look her in the eyes and I say, "Are you American Indian?" And she didn't know what to answer me. She just walked out. Because we're all foreigner over here. Okay? So don't call me foreigner. So, that's how it is. And I mean, I don't take any bullshit from nobody.
Yeah. After what you've been through, why should you?
Hey, I don't want nothing from nobody. Don't give me nothing. I don't care, You're free to do whatever you want. The same thing with me. I went to the Ono Nation. I was speaking over there. And in a high school, and two girls started to cry. And I say, "Wait a minute. What about you, history?" And they look at me like, what the hell she's talking about? I say, "Don't you know your own history?" And they say, "No." So two students decided to go to the university and learn their history. And I think everybody should know the history, which is the one thing that it's wrong over here. Nobody's teaching the American history, nobody teaching any kind of history. I know a friend, she used to be a principal in Wyoming, someplace, over there. She quit because they stopped teaching history. And I always say, if you don't have history, you don't have a country.
You mentioned something interesting about in the ghetto, in the Warsaw Ghetto, when you put a lot of Jews together in a room, they would somehow disagree with each other and fight with each other. And this has been the story of Jewish politics, especially in Israel, since the founding of Israel. Why are Jews so contentious amongst themselves?
No, they didn't fight, if you were. No, I didn't say that.
Well, you said something about...
I said that there was a lot of, in one room, that there was 8, 10 people living together.
Did they disagree, though, at some point? Maybe I misunderstood.
No.
Okay. But nevertheless, this thing, for example, I'll give you an example. During World War II, there were rich, powerful Jews in the United States. They owned the Hollywood studios. They owned the New York Times.
They still do.
But they did not speak up. They were maybe afraid to be, for people to know they were Jews.
Well, everybody knew that the owner of the New York newspaper was Jewish and is Jewish.
Yeah.
And he has people that are writing articles, anti-Semitic articles.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah. But in Hollywood, Joseph Kennedy, who was the American ambassador to England, went to Hollywood and they had a meeting. He said, "You cannot make movies about the Holocaust."
But he was for Hitler.
I know, but I'm just saying, they listened to him. They were afraid. Movies are very powerful. Yet during the war, maybe a little, I was a Nazi spy, something like that, but nothing at all about the Holocaust for decades, for years. It was only until 1964, Rod Steiger, The Pawnbroker. That was the first movie that really told that story. So my question is, why are Jews so reluctant? Why were they? Was it just fear of losing their status? Why didn't they speak out?
Probably. And maybe all of them was Democrats, and the president was Democrat. Maybe that's too. Because Roosevelt always say, oh no, this is not a Jewish war. This is, okay? So, you never know.
Yeah, well, that was the story that they told back then, but we know that wasn't true now, that he was anti-Semitic. He didn't want Jews to come into the United States.
Yeah. And didn't he have a person that was working for him, Jewish?
Roseman.
No,
Samuel Rosenman.
that was, he was in charge of what?
He was one of his top aides in the White House.
No. There was somebody else that was, I don't remember what it was exactly. But he was not aide. He was in charge of something.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the Bank of America? I don't know exactly. That he came to him and begged him to do something.
Yeah. Well, Roosevelt was on the board at Harvard University, and he was the one responsible for establishing a quota so that fewer Jews would actually be admitted to the college.
And you know what? Johnson, do you know that he was giving visas to people to come?
When was that?
When he was a senator or something, Texas, he used to give visas to Jews to come. I have that thing in my book.
Well, I want to read your book. I have some other questions about anti-Semitism today, but I want to discuss those on Tuesday with the group.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I have over here across the street, I have a neighbor. And I used to have a neighbor 2 houses down there. She was from Austria, Vienna. Her sister was in Germany studying to be a nurse during World War II. There was, I never asked her how deep she was. Because we was, neighbors and we was friends. And one day, she was in her house and I was over there too. And that bitch over there made a remark. She jumped on her. You wouldn't imagine it. She jumped on her. He said, I don't want you to say anything else. Speak like that in front of me. Okay, there you go.
Green Valley, Arizona.
So this is the only really thing that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I don't. Every day I am in a swimming pool. I'm swimming. I have friends over there. We're talking. They know that I'm Jewish because I'm not hiding it. And it's fine. And nobody gives a damn. I have a friend who used to be a judge over here. Monday is her birthday. I'm invited to go to the birthday. She's wearing cross. I make a pin for her with a cross. It's fine. That's how it is. I used to have a friend, Mormon. They invited me to their church to come. Fine. My son-in-law is Mormon, not practicing, but it's Mormon. And I wouldn't exchange them for any other person. So, what can I say? So I really don't, I never find anybody, to do anything or say except her over here.
good. That's very good. You know, if you take two babies, let's say 18 months old, and you put them in a crib, they will play together.
Absolutely.
5 or 6 years later, they may hate each other.
Because of the parents.
Because of the parents. What is it about our species that is so suspicious of outsiders that we hate them? Is it jealousy?
It is jealousy. You know, somebody comes to my house and say, "Oh, you have a beautiful house. You must be rich." I am not rich. I just was working hard and saving my money. I didn't go and blow it. Okay? That's why I can afford to do something. When I got married, we didn't have even enough money to go on a honeymoon. And then we saved and saved because my husband was in the American Army. So we bought a house on GI
Bill?
Yes, okay. And I didn't have furniture. And we have a friend that used to have a furniture store in Hartwood. Come and pick up whatever you want to. You pay me when you have. I said, oh no. When I have the money, I'm going to buy it. I was working and working and working, saving money so I can buy this house. And that's what they don't understand. Because they have money, they're blowing it. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the older generation, maybe the younger generation is different, but that's how I was, okay? I was saving. If I wanted something, I was saving the money for it.
I think the younger generation is different, Wanda, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, of course, some of the Jews are going with the other against the Jews, okay? There you go.
Yeah, there's conflict, but I'm 71. In my lifetime, the world has changed a lot.
Oh yes.
And
yep.
I love I love medical technology. I had cancer, and I survived everything because of the technology. But the way people treat each other is getting worse.
Yes.
It's not getting better.
Because maybe it is because maybe they depend too much on the government. Like everything they deserve to have. You don't need to work for it. You just, hey, it's the same thing, If you want something, you break to a store and you take it, right? Which is, that's what, I think that's the new generation. You don't need to work. You don't need to say.
They have a sense of entitlement. That's how it's been described.
Yeah.
They think, well, yeah.
Yeah, it's coming to me. Yeah. I was born here. That's what's coming to me.
But I bet your grandchildren aren't like that.
No.
It's always about the family.
My son-in-law is terrific. That's what I'm saying. My son-in-law is terrific. And the two kids, the two girls, they adopted.
Oh.
Yeah, didn't you see in the picture? Yeah. One is Korean born, one is Taiwan.
Taiwan?
Yeah, China.
My daughter lives in Taiwan.
Really?
Yeah.
How come?
She, my first wife was Chinese, so my daughter was Chinese and Jewish. But when she graduated from college with her husband, they wanted to travel around the world. And they didn't have any money, so they decided they would teach English. And they went there and they love it there. They prospered. I've been there 4 times. It's a great place.
Yeah, I was there too. I visited.
Yeah.
I went for a visit over there. It was a funny thing because my daughter and I, we went for a visit, and on a bus, the tour guide, say, "Oh, you shouldn't be going out no place. You know, you can be this and that and that." If somebody tells me something like that, so I went to my daughter and I say, "You want to come? We're going to take a taxi and we're going to travel and on a look around." That was in the late afternoon. "No, I'm not going." So I said, "Okay, so I'm going." I went downstairs from the hotel, saw a taxi, a guy speak English. I said, "Okay, just take me around." He took me to the museum. He took me to a market. He was fighting with the person that he should charge me less money for what I wanted to buy, okay? He took me all over. Next day we're going on a bus, and the guy said, "This is over here." I say, "I was over here." "This is over here." "I was over here." You know? And that's my daughter and my son-in-law went over there to adopt a child from there.